2016, that's 7 months, 1 day, I looked at the calendar, I did a sprint triathlon. That means I swam a quarter mile, I biked 13 miles, and then I ran 3.1 miles. It took me 2 hours and 32 minutes, which is not very good, but doing that on one leg, just 7 months, 1 day after the amputation, that was pretty darn good. And a lot of people said to me, you know what, Evan, you should talk to people and inspire them, because a lot of people were inspired by this. So it's something I've been working on in my spare time. I'm going to give you a little history. In 2015 was a busy year for me. I finished up all my medical training. It takes 10 years, 4 years of medical school, an intern year, 4 years of residency, and then a fellowship year. But I finally finished that. I got a job here in New Jersey where my wife's from. It's a very nice state. And then my second child was born, my first daughter, Abigail. And I started my new job, and in November of that year I found out I passed my board certification, the initial certifying exam. So it was a busy year. So you can imagine December of that year was kind of a letdown when I had an MRI for some ankle pain and showed a large mass in my left calcaneus. I don't know how much anatomy you guys know. The calcaneus is basically your heel bone. So I had a big mass that occupied most of the bone, and it had actually broken out of the bone into the soft tissue. So the orthopedic oncologist at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, he had recommended what's called a below-the-knee amputation. Up until that point, I only had what's called an image-guided or percutaneous or through-the-skin biopsy. So the diagnosis wasn't 100%. So as he said to me, after this operation, there's no going back. You can't reattach the leg. So we had one more surgery to confirm the diagnosis. And I have to tell you, once the diagnosis was confirmed, I was very much at peace with what we had to do. And I was just looking forward to coming up with some sort of goal, something to do after this setback. Because believe it or not, everybody, even the person who looks the most perfect to you, everybody has setbacks in their life. So I was looking for something to do after this setback. So basically I had the amputation in February, and for that whole month I was just going around on crutches, just with one leg. But I was able to drive, so I was able to go to the gym. And then in March, I got my prosthetic leg. Now when you get a prosthetic leg after an amputation, the fibula and tibia, those are the bones in your lower leg, that's all I was left with. Those bones aren't meant to bear weight, not like the bones in your feet. So I could, even though I had the prosthetic leg, I couldn't do this. I couldn't bear weight like this on the leg. It takes time, so I had to go on 2 crutches. And then I graduated to 1 crutch. And then by the end of March, beginning of April, I was up to walking with just a cane. And then I would test myself, and every few steps, I wouldn't put the cane on the ground. And then finally, on April 19th of 2016, that was only 2 months, 17 days after the amputation. That was the first time I went running. It was at physical therapy. We went outside the building. The grass was wet. I fell once, but it wasn't the prettiest gait. You guys would be able to run loops around me, but I was out there running. And then in June 5th of that year, 4 months, 3 days after the amputation, I was at a running clinic. And I was with the more advanced group, even though it was so close to the amputation, and I was doing obstacle courses. And then, of course, the big thing was 7 months, 1 day later, I did the Egg Harbor Lake sprint triathlon. So, and that's not where the story of motivation ends. The cancer, unfortunately, had spread to my lungs, and I still have it in my bones. And in July of last year, they took out the upper lobe of my left lung. Again, I don't know how much anatomy you guys know, but you have 2 lungs, and each lung can be divided up into lobes. And so they basically took out half of my left lung. That was in July of 2017. I did a 5-mile race in November of that year, the Rothman Institute 8K in Philly. That was in November of 2017. So I hope that this gives you some inspiration. I was able to overcome the amputation, the loss of my left lower leg, but I'm still out there running and competing, and most importantly having fun and trying to stay healthy. And I just want you guys to know that if I could be out there doing it when things aren't perfect, when things aren't going perfect for you guys could still be out on that field giving it your all. So, but what I'd really like to do is give you guys some tools to succeed. And when I was thinking about, well, how was I able to do this? And then I thought about my earlier life, some of my academic careers. I have a PhD in chemistry, and then I got an MD. And I was able to break it down to 4 pillars, is what I call it. There's no PowerPoint here, there's no big screen, there's no handouts. I just want you guys to remember 4 things. Everyone could do that. Because believe you me, I'm the type of kid, when I was a kid, I still call myself a kid, Sometimes I'm in class, I'm trying to jot down everything the teacher or the presenter is saying. Even now when I go to my doctor's appointment, sometimes I'm there with my notebook writing down everything the doctor says. You'd be amazed what you can remember in your minds, especially when it's broken down to simple things. And I'm going to break this down to 4 simple things. SOS. Setbacks are opportunities for success. Clearly I had a setback. I had cancer and I lost a limb. But as you see, I didn't let that stop me. I came up with a goal. And then mind your A's and P's. We all need an action plan and an action potential. I'll tell you what I mean by that. And then TNT. Everyone can remember TNT. You want to be strong like dynamite. That's trust in your training. Okay? And lastly, P squared. We don't want to become victims of perfection paralysis. We won't get anything done. So you already know about my setback. I was a fairly athletic person. I just said to myself, it would be the greatest achievement. It would provide me with so much inspiration if I could do a triathlon within 1 year of the amputation. And so I had a setback, and I made a goal for myself. Other people who suffer medical setbacks, maybe they're more artistic than I am. I can't draw for lick. You don't want to see my drawings or hear me sing. But some cancer patients, they do beautiful drawings and beautiful songs and poetry. I can't write a poem. So mine was more athletic bent. But I thought back to when I was a first-year medical student, and anatomy is such a key part of medicine in that first year. And we dissect, it's called a cadaver. People basically donate their bodies to medicine, and that's how you learn the body. And I really didn't do as well as I wanted to on that first anatomy test, because I was going about it wrong. I would dissect with my table mates. I would just kind of go by gestalt. Oh, this organ looks like that. I would go by size, shape maybe. So when I didn't do as well as I wanted on that first test, I went to the anatomy professor. I was going about it all wrong. It's all about location. So in the body, there's some huge organs that you can't miss. There's a big vein called the inferior vena cava. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of that. It delivers all the blood from the lower part of your body back to your heart. There's a little teeny tiny organ. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the adrenal glands. There's one on the right side, one on the left. So he explained to me, Evan, to find the right adrenal gland, which is one of the things that, basically the way an anatomy test works in medical school, they'll have the cadavers and they'll put little pins on different organs, and you have to say what pin number 2 is on, or you have to say the right adrenal gland is pin number 3. He said, Evan, the way you do it is very simple. The right adrenal gland is posterior behind the inferior vena cava at the level of the liver. You can't miss the inferior vena cava of the liver. These are big, huge organs. And that's where this little tiny thing is. And I got to tell you, I'm a practicing radiologist today. I read CT scans all the time. Those are images of the body. One of the things you have to do is you have to go through all the organs to make sure they're okay. That's still how I find the right adrenal gland. I go to the inferior vena cava, and I look right behind it. And that's how I do it. But that took self-awareness on my part. I would be like, I didn't do as well as I wanted on the exam. I mean, I still passed it, but I wasn't at the goal where I wanted to be. I hope you all set high goals for yourself, because that's what you should do. You should all aim for the highest you possibly can achieve. And then I had to have an honest self-assessment. I had to go to the professor and say, listen, what was I doing wrong? Give me some tips. And for whatever reason, I didn't pick up on that's how you do it. And then one-on-one, he taught me, and I did much better the next anatomy exam. And as you can see, I still use this in my everyday job. So another example is when I was a resident and I had to read CT scans. Those are images of the body. I just wasn't going fast enough. You know, the patients come through the emergency room very fast. So one day I sat down with the program director, and he just worked with me one-on-one. And now, using that same technique, 7 years later, I'm rolling my way through CT scans to the emergency room. The setbacks are opportunities for success. You see this in sports all the time. Who's on the JV team right now? Raise your hand, because I know we have a mixed group. Okay, how many of you are sophomores? How many of you maybe thought this year you'd be on the varsity team? Okay, who here has heard of Michael Jordan? When he was a sophomore, he was gunning for the varsity team. What do you think happened? He's the greatest basketball player of all time, some say. What do you think happened? Maybe you guys know this story. He didn't make the varsity team. He made the JV team. Did that stop him? Well, you guys all heard of Michael Jordan. Yeah, no, it didn't stop him. It gave him a little chip on his shoulder. And you know what? When I'm on the track and I'm running with my prosthetic leg, I run with a little chip on my shoulder. Nothing wrong with that. I don't have a chip on my shoulder. I'm like, oh, I lost my leg. I'm not going to go run anymore. No, but when I'm out there running, it gives me a little extra motivation. You think MJ had a little extra motivation in high school to get on the varsity team? Good. How many of you guys heard of Bill Belichick? Coach of the Patriots. Guys, well, I mean, I'm not a Patriots fan, but guys won a lot of games, huh? Do you know he had a coaching gig before the Patriots, a head coaching gig with the Cleveland Browns in the 90s? He was fired. Did you let that setback stop him? I bet you when he got another opportunity to be a head coach, he looked back on what he did with the Browns, and he improved on it. I'm a big Knicks fan. They're not doing very well the last few seasons, but they got a new head coach. And guess what? It's not his first coaching gig, David Fisdale. He coached for the Memphis Grizzlies. And I guarantee you, he's going over what he did right and what he did wrong when he coached the Memphis Grizzlies. And he's going to make some changes in his own coaching style now that he's with the Knicks. You see this all the time. I'm not a business person, but in business, there are always setbacks in the economy, but some business people are smart and they look for where there are opportunities. In politics, you know, who's heard of Richard Nixon? Obviously, his political career didn't end so well, he resigned. But you know, he lost the presidential election in 1960. In 1962, he lost the gubernatorial election in California. Did that stop him? In 1968, the guy became president. So I bet you when he was running in 1968, he thought about what he did in 1960 and 1962. So everybody has setbacks. The key is to make those setbacks opportunities for success. Have a positive outlook. Okay, now the second pillar, A's and P's, which is actually two things, action plans. I worked, before I went back to medical school, I worked as a chemist for the Department of Energy. Every time we had a meeting, the group leader, in addition to being scientist, she also had an MBA, like a business degree. Everyone left with an action plan. It wasn't like, oh, we want to do this, and it was kind of nebulous. No, everyone left with a very clear set of objectives. And if you did not accomplish that by the next meeting, she would want to know why. So the action plan can also be thought of as a roadmap. Some of our tasks in life are so mundane, or we do them so the time, we don't need to write out an action plan. We just know in our head what to do. But how many of you guys are planning on going to college after high school? I would imagine most of you, if not all. You're going to have to apply to college. That is the sort of task maybe you only do once or twice in your life. And there are going to be lots of things to do. There are going to be transcripts to get, letters of recommendations to get, essays to write, have someone proofread the essay. You write it out on a sheet, all the things that you need to do, and you make little boxes. That's an action plan. When I was in my medical training, after the 4 years of medical school, I had a general internship. We would round on the patients. We would go around, and I was responsible for ordering all the studies and following up on. So for each patient, I would have a list of things to do after we were round in the morning. So the action plan is sort of like your roadmap. Okay? Your coaches develop action plans for your development and for each game. The key about an action plan is you want it to be flexible. Stuff in life is going to happen outside of your control. Instead of calling this presentation 7 months, 1 day, it really should be 6 months, 10 days. I had my eye on something called the Brigantine Island Triathlon, which was in August of 2016. But in June of 2016, I fell when I wasn't wearing my prosthetic leg. I was at a pool and I don't swim with it. At least at that time I didn't. So I fell and I bruised up the distal end of my residual limb, and I couldn't wear the leg, and I had to take a few weeks off from training. So no big deal. I just went, saw where another triathlon was, and made some changes to my schedule. You're going to have to be flexible in life and just realize that stuff happens, okay? Now so what I spoke about so far is all fine and good, you know, setbacks, opportunities for success. I'll come up with an action plan. But this is where the rubber meets the road. Action potential. This is what I call the doing. You actually have to do your action plan now. You actually have to execute it. And I call this the action potential, not just because it's cute, it fits in with the A's and P's. Every time you move one of your muscles, a signal goes from your brain to the muscle along very specialized cells called neurons. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of neurons. Again, I don't know how much anatomy. I see someone raising their hands. And the neurons actually work, ions or charged particles actually moving in and out of the cells, creating a voltage potential, so actually electricity, to send that signal down. So this is really where the rubber meets the road, because an action plan is useless if you're not actually doing it. So if you're on a team, this is instead of just dreaming about a championship, thinking about, oh, how great it would be, this is where